ago of agents doing less business and less business. Another thing to consider is 20% of agents do about 80% of all transactions. In a shifted market where business becomes harder to find, harder to get, more expensive to obtain a client, and to cash flow your business, it actually gets pushed into a 10% of agents doing 90% of business. So what does that mean? So agents who are in that middle ground are going to be pushed even harder. And if you don't know what to do in a market like this, the initial thought is, okay, I don't know what's going on. I kind of just sit here and let the business happen to me. Well, I think all of you guys, if you're like me, you want to take initiative into your own hands and be able to be prepared for what's in front of us and prepare now, so that when we get 3-6 months down the road and business becomes harder and harder, that you guys are ready for what's there. So I'm going to actually start with some stats with what we learned. And we went to Built How, which is not sure if you guys know Ben Kinney, but he's the leader, is the largest expansion network of real estate teams around the country. So he's pretty big time. You guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, new market, new times. Pretty fitting title. Okay, so we're going to start with economic stats, takeaways from the conference, how this affects your business, how do we survive, creating a vision and plan, and how we can collaborate to help each other get through whatever is in front of us. Okay, so kind of some interesting stats here. August of 2021 to 2022, home sales are down 19.9% nationally. That's already a big shift in August. Continuing that is going to be probably even get worse, maybe 30 or 40% down month over month, or year over year. Home sales back in 2020 were 5.6 million. Home sales this last year were 6.12 million, which is, I believe that was a record breaking year for amount of homes that were sold, which was a crazy year. And here's what Goldman Sachs presented a bunch of data based on what rising interest rates and initiatives that the government wants to, that they not want, but they are putting in place. For example, raising the interest rates is expected to actually push the amount of home sales down to under 5 million in 2023. So we go from 6.1 million down to 5 million, yet we have 1.5 million agents, the record amount of agents we've ever had. Well, how does that work? We have record amount of agents fighting for a massive reduction of amount of homes that are being sold. It just doesn't work that way. So you have a time period where you have all these agents fighting for the smallest amount of business. And well, that can only lead to one thing: massive amount of competition and eventually agents leaving the business. Here's another interesting stat that I took. So plans to buy a home in the next 6 months. Right now it's, I heard it's 7. So it's a 7-year low. That was before interest rates went over 7%. So I'm willing to bet that it's probably a 10 or 15-year low for people that are projected to buy a house in the next 6 months, or people who plan on buying the house in the next 6 months. Obviously we all know how that would affect us. Those are our clients. If people aren't planning on buying a home, we don't have a client. Supply of available homes, we all know that that's been going down and down. We all know what the supply of homes, we've all felt that amount of homes that are in the market compared to how many buyers we have. You have 4, 5, 6 buyers on a house. Obviously it's shifted now that interest rates have went up. I'm sure a lot of you guys have had buyers who were planning to buy a home 3 months ago and have taken a back seat to home buying because the interest rates have they've priced them out of the market, or they're just sick of it. They're just sick of dealing with it, or they're scared of what's going to happen in the future. So home price index. So what's going to happen with obviously the hyperinflation over the past few years? It's expected that home prices actually level off. And if you're like me, I've had some clients buy a home and then 8 to 9 months later, like, oh, we want to move. Well, last year and the year before that, very simple. We list their house and we sell it. because they already have 15% more equity than they had 8-9 months ago. So it's easy to sell their home. Well, what happens in this market where their house levels off? They bought a house for $200,000 9 months ago. Now it's worth $195,000 and they're underwater. And in order to pay you, they're going to have to write you a check. It makes everything a lot more tricky. So does anybody have any comments on those stats that I just shared with you guys? They're pretty straightforward, but does anybody have anything they want to share?
He's just reviewing what he learned at.
What's that, Jill?
Sorry, I thought I was muted.
At least she wasn't cussing me out. Okay, so a couple of takeaways from the conference that Morgan and I were at last week. So the reason why interest rates are going up specifically is because the government, they need to somehow control the hyperinflation that was caused from the amount of money that was pumped into the economy over the past few years. So what they're really doing, they're trying to increase the cost of doing business so people actually slow down their habits. And most of the time when this happens, when interest rates are spiked up really quickly, Goldman Sachs gave us a number of 45 to a 55% chance that the economy actually gets pushed into a full-fledged recession this next year. So there's a 50% chance that they don't, but there's also a 50% chance that we do. There's kind of a narrow window for them to control interest rates so that we don't go into a recession. But it's also historically pretty common when this type of inflation hike or interest rate hike happens, we do get pushed into some sort of recession. Okay, so I said that. So there's the 20/80 principle. I shared that earlier with you guys. Recession, it's about 10% of agents doing 90% of the business. And so another thing that's interesting. So if you take the top 1.5% of all teams across the country, the top 1.5% of teams across the country are doing about 62% of all transactions. And that's per transaction, that doesn't count volume or anything like that, which is an interesting stat for us all to know. So how does it affect us? Kind of talked about this earlier. So we have a lot of home sales that are happening. For example, in 2021, we had 6.2 million transactions. And if you're like me, you see agents joining the MLS left and right, like, oh my gosh, somebody else is an agent, somebody else is an agent, somebody else is an agent. That's from the perceived value that somebody can get by entering the market, which is possible when there's 6.2 million transactions happening. But as the economy slows down and it goes down to less than 5 million, these agents don't just pop out of the real estate market. It's not like they just, oh man, look at that. There's less transactions to have, so I'm just going to leave right away. There's actually a several month period where there's still 1.5 million agents, but now we're on pace to do 5 million transactions. So who's read the book Shift out of this group? Jill, and then our team has, Catherine has anybody else? I can't see everybody right now. Brian, have you read?
What was it? Shift?
Shift. SHIFT.
Oh, Shift. I have not.
Okay. If you guys haven't read that book, I highly recommend it because it really helps us understand what we're going through, how to survive it. And it gives us also charts for like my brain is very much like chart oriented. It just makes a lot more sense. So I'm just going to explain this graph to you guys really briefly here. So this line right here is the amount of income available, the amount of aka the amount of transactions, amount of GCI that's available in the market. So it peaks up. This last year was peak. We have 6.2 million homes being sold. Oh, it's so great being a real estate agent, making all this money, blah, 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 blah. Then nephew Timmy and cousin and my high school classmate, they all want to get the real estate license because we're doing so great. Woohoo. Oh, well, what happens when the real estate market shifts? Boom. The amount of income dips, but the number of agents don't dip until 6-8 months down the road. So you have this 6 to 8 month lagging period of agents exiting the market, and then it continues to happen over time. And so what happens here is weaker agents that aren't doing the right activities. They're not surrounding themselves with the right team, brokerage, mindset, mentors. They actually have a lagging, so they're leaving the market. Basically, like dead leaves falling off of a tree. It's good for the tree, right? You kind of get rid of the weaklings in a way that aren't doing the right things. So that's what this chart is all about. Another thing I want to touch base on, you guys, if you never read Shift Again, I got this right out of the Shift book. This is super helpful mindset thing. And I actually draw this chart for whenever I go into a listing appointment. I draw this chart. I'd make it a little bit more simple than this because this is a little bit complicated. But what happens if we list a home in a market that is actually going down in value or flatlining? What ends up happening if we list let's say we list a house for $250, but the real estate market is actually going down in value, or the interest rates are rising more, which is going to push the value of the house down naturally. What ends up happening? I list the house for $250,000, but what if it's only worth $235,000? 2 months down the road, I drop that down to $235 to meet where the market was. But in that meantime, those 2 months, the house actually dropped another $15,000. So that's what this is showing right here. Okay, I just did a price drop, and all of a sudden the market value of that home is actually going down quicker than what I'm price dropping. So you're just chasing the market downhill. So what I say to all my clients is, in a market where we are going down in value, or if we're just at a stagnant price point, we really need to make sure that we're pricing that house correctly the first time around, because there is such thing as overpricing a property. Who in here, I already know the answer, probably everybody, who in here has listed a house, you go on to a listing appointment, and the client says, well, I don't want to just give my house away. I'm going to list it high because I can always come lower, but I can't necessarily go back up. So I'm not an argumentative type. So I said, yeah, you're right. But let's think about this. Have you ever looked at a vehicle on a parking lot, or have you been looking for a camper to buy, or have you been looking for a fishing boat to buy, and you're on Craigslist, you're scrolling through Craigslist, and you know this fishing boat's worth $2,500. You just know that because you've been looking for fishing boats for, there's a Kelly Blue Book of fishing boats, whatever. You know this boat is worth about $2,500, but you come across one that's worth that's listed for $3,700. Are you, David Taylor, going to go to that person that has the boat listed for $3,700, knowing that the boat is worth $2,500, and negotiate that person down when there's another boat listed down the road for $2,600?
Nope.
Exactly. So why would he do that with your house? And so you really need to make sure that your clients understand this concept, because it's so simple when you're buying yourself, but sellers also struggle to put themselves in the shoes of a buyer, which we need to give them perspective. That's what our job is at the end of the day anyway. So that's my conversation with almost every client I go into. Number one, it's education. And I'm going to get into this a little bit further in here. But if us as real estate agents are not educating our clients, and we're not going to be, if we're just going to be opening up doors and listing homes on the MLS for our clients, I can guarantee you half of us in this Zoom call are not going to be in business in the next 12 months if that's all we're doing. So we need to be educating our clients. Number one, because it's what we are, what we're paid for. And number two, if you want to get a home sold, which is usually what your client comes to you for, we need to be having a conversation right then. On the flip side, we see a home that's really listed way over value for our buyer. Also talk to our buyer and say, hey, this house is listed $50,000 over list price or over what market value is. These buyers, and they might be actually motivated. They just might have a crummy agent who didn't have that conversation, that they might be willing to take a lower offer. So don't be scared to step up to the plate. Okay, so how do we shift? How do we survive in a shifted market like this? This is 4 full disclosure, I've never went through a shifted market before, but I have a lot of great mentors and I'm very confident that we're going to be able to make it through whatever gets thrown at us. So here's some kind of interesting stats for all of you guys. 77% of consumers, aka home sellers or home buyers, interview one agent before they list their home or choose an agent to buy a home with. Just let that sink in there for a second. 77% of home buyers or sellers only interview one agent before listing or buying. What does that tell us exactly? That tells us if we're not the first agent that somebody thinks about when they're thinking about real estate, we've already lost. We have already lost. So we need to be the very first one. If you're not the first one in the front door, you've already lost the long game. You might get a client here or there that ends up interviewing multiple agents and they go with you, but 77% of the time, they're going to be interviewing one person. So some other interesting information. 1 out of 7 people in your database on a 36 touch program will do business with you every 12 months, either through a referral from them or they'll directly do business with you. In a shifted market, I don't know the exact stat, but I'm going to guess it's around probably 1 in every 12 in a shifted market. So some of you guys might be saying, what's a database and what's a 36 touch program and what the hell is a contact? So your database are your clients, they're your sphere, they're your people that you know, they like you, they know you, they like you, they trust you. So if you guys don't have a database put together, start putting buy a CRM, or I'm sure your brokerage or your team or whoever has a CRM system that you have access to, and start making sure that you get their emails, their phone numbers, and their mailing address put in there. Why do I focus so heavily on database and retargeting my sphere and people who already know, like, and trust me? Because guess what? It's about 50 times cheaper to obtain a client who already knows, like, and trusts you than buying online leads and or for example, buying a Zillow lead. That's going to be 50 times more expensive than it is to already have a relationship with somebody that you've built over the last 3 years through text messages, emails, mailers, and we also do 4 phone calls a year. And so you guys may be like, well, I don't know how the hell to do that. Guess what? Just do something. It's better than nothing. When I was first getting started, I was doing 62 transactions by myself, and I would send out the most bland, probably, like, people started hating me for it, but I would send out like the most bland emails ever. And guess what? Most people did business with me. About 1 in every 7 people did business with me. So don't overthink these things. So when I say 1 out of every 12 people do business with you in a shifted market, that means if you have, let's say you have 120 clients in your database with their phone numbers, their emails, and their direct mailing address, you're going to get about 10 transactions over the next 12 months out of that. One of it's going to be a referral from them. Uncle Johnny that you have in your database, they've been talking to you for a year, is going to send you to his friend that he works with at work. And the next one is going to be your high school classmate that you have been talking to for years, and they're going to do business with you. I personally would rather do business with my own sphere, people that already know, like, or trust me, than try to convince a random Zillow lead who doesn't give a shit about you to do business with you. So in this type of market, we really got to get away from the marketing side of things. That's really a lot more expensive, and dive deep into our people who know, like, and trust us. The reason is phone calls do not cost anything. Making a phone call to Uncle Johnny or making a phone call to your high school classmate that you haven't talked to in a while doesn't cost a dime. We can't expense our way out of a recession. We need to make sure we are keeping our eyes on expenses at the end of the day to stay in business. Again, if we aren't resources for our clients in this market, we become irrelevant. If you're just in business to open doors for consumers, you'll not be in business 12 months from now. And add everyone to your database. What we plan on doing, it's expected that the market shifts, or there's 30% less homes from last year to sell than this year, or so 30% less coming into this next year than there was this year and last year. So what we plan on doing to make up that difference is to increase your database by 30%. So if we have about 2,000 people in our database right now, and don't be shocked if your database isn't that big. It took like 5-6 years to get it to that point. We're going to increase it to $2,600 or 2,600 people on our database in order to stay in business. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, so create a vision and a plan. So now that I kind of gave you guys those numbers, and I'm going to send you guys this PowerPoint so you guys can look it over and everything on your own time. So let's say you want to make $75,000 this year. I'd be cool with $75,000. So if you want to make that much money, you need to reverse engineer.
Would you, Dan? Would you?
Dave,
Let's.
write me a check. If you want to make $75,000, you must reverse engineer to figure out how many people you need in your database. So I'm just going to put this out. I just wrote it out because I was like, a lot of people on this call probably have never done this activity before. 75,000. Let's say you make an average of $3,000 per closing. You need to have 25 closings. If we know that it takes 12 contacts per closing, you would need to have 12 contacts times 25 closings equals you need to have 300 contacts in your database with a phone, an email, and a mailing address consistently marketed to on the 40 touch program. That's the 12 emails, 12 text messages, 12 direct mails, and 4 phone calls each year. Once you have a vision, create a plan. So you have your vision is 75,000. Now my plan is, okay, here's how I'm going to get these contacts. You can, and that'll be a whole other conversation if you guys want to chat about that. We have 2,000. That took a long time, but we did it consistently and we've done it over years. So stay consistent. Michael Phelps, we actually got to listen to Michael Phelps last week, which is pretty cool. The biggest thing I took away from him was that he trained for 6 years straight without a single day off. He went to the Olympics. The day after the Olympics, he got back in the pool and started working out for the next Olympics. Like literally, this guy was so freaking consistent. I think he is a little fried in the brain from being in the pool for that many hours, but this is what he did. And this is what he did to survive. And he has, I don't even know how many world records. I think he only actually has one world record now, but he had at one time, he had like dozens of, he does have dozens of gold medals and multiple world records. Last but not least, you guys got to start caring about your dollar per hour. If you want to make $15 an hour, do everything yourself. Upload all the information yourself. Do everything. If you want to start thinking about yourself in a matter like a business, you need to start thinking about things that you can implement into your life, tools, systems, and leverage, and people that can help you get that dollar per hour higher. If you are currently, I'm just going to try to think about an example. What's a good example for us? If you're currently uploading your data into the MLS, who likes uploading data into the MLS? Like the most boring thing on earth. Todd, you like it? That's good. So like, if you're uploading your own MLS sheets into the MLS, how much could you pay somebody else to do that? If it was a $15 an hour task, you have to think of this. You have to think of running your business in the sense of, okay, if you could pay somebody else $15 an hour to do that thing or less even, you're getting paid $15 an hour for that time. And I don't know about you, if I'm trying to make $75,000 a year, I can't be making $15 an hour. I need to be out there making 20, 30, 40, $50 an hour. So think about that. Hire people or get leverage or hire systems to help you get that. And what tasks can you delegate out to others? Or for example, like a transaction coordinator, like a third-party transaction coordinator is a good example. I know there's a really good transaction coordinator in the cities that I've heard of that you can pay them like $250 and they'll handle the coordination of the whole process once you get a contract under, you get accepted offer. So just a couple things to think about for you guys. And last but not least, collaboration. So who you're surrounding yourself with makes a huge difference. For example, Jill and I, we talk on the phone once in a while. Why? Because Jill's a badass. She does like 90 transactions a year. And I want to be talking to people who are doing really good business. And Jill's been in the business for probably about 100 years now. And so, and so I want to be talking to people who are in the business, who've been in the business a long time. So find mentors.
Dude, you just threw me under the bus.
Yeah.
Not 100 years,
How many years has it been?
15.
So you have gone through the last.
I started in a shift,
Yeah, exactly.
2008.
So everybody watch for Jill because Jill's gonna kick off her ass. So find mentors. Talk, lean into your team and or brokerage for support. If your brokerage isn't giving you support or letting you know what's about to happen, or telling you to increase your database, or giving you tips on how to increase your database, start looking, because that's going to be the difference between you making it in the next 12 months and you not making it. And that's just facts. Get information from credible sources. For example, what was that one we were talking about? The CNN and Fox News are not credible sources for your understanding of what the market's doing. Last but not least, find a trusted lender. Lender is going to be a great partner for you in this process. And I actually have Todd on here. He's a lender, and there's also Brian that's on this call too. He's also a lender with CCF. Todd is with Landhome Financial. Sorry, dude. I was blanking a little bit. So I did want to I want to just like open this up for like 5 minutes for people to like share what their thoughts are right now, like what they're doing going forward, and any like aha moments that you had during this. And then also, then I have Todd come on here and kind of talk about what he sees in the market that's going to be happening. I think ahas. We'll open up for like 5 minutes for ahas, and then we'll have Todd talk about the lending side of things.
I think something worth mentioning is, I would imagine every realtor has some form of a database, like whether that's a Excel spreadsheet or whatever. Hopefully it's in a CRM, but like does no good unless you that 36 touch program. Like even if you can hit them 24 and right now you're doing it twice a year, it does no good if you don't do anything with it.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah, I think some of us overthink a database because database sounds very sterile, like it sounds not pretty. But all a database is are your friends and family, your past clients, people that are in your life and you have contact information for. That's it. Pretty simple. It's just another word for what we call a database. We have a marketing system and a process that we follow. And that's good.
I think for me, having like going on a database, like me coming in fresh and having a team with a awesome database and having somewhere to put my information and organize my information, I think overall it's helped me succeed and be organized and know what I'm getting into each day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Todd and I actually just used our database just last week to send out a survey, literally asking, hey, you planning to buy in the next 6 months, planning to sell in the next months, and do you like your lender? If not, here we go. And I don't know, we had about a dozen people come back and give us good information. So guess who I'm going to reach out to this next week?
That's awesome.
Good idea.
That's awesome. I don't know what is going on here. Sorry. How do I unshare? I just been an idiot.
It's the top. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Okay, so what you're doing, David, is exactly what we're talking about. Reaching out with value. See how you can help people.
Hey Dan, while you're pulling things up, I might be pulling off of something I'm coaching my team on. You mentioned something really great about evaluating your own hourly wage. First, you talked about discover what kind of income that you want to back yourself into, and then you talked about knowing what your hourly wage is. and getting rid of the small stuff. Very important to do, but don't forget to reevaluate that regularly. There's a reason why a lot of you got out of the daily grind of working for that 9 to 5, or maybe you just decided from the very get-go you wanted to be a real estate agent, you wanted to be straight commission, you wanted to be your own boss. Think of it in the corporate world where you started a certain wage and then you grow through corporations or you go through businesses and you get raises and you get raises. In your world, that's the mindset of I'm going to start at a certain wage and the idea is to grow that wage. So you're reevaluating. So you might actually do the MLS uploads and the other monotonous tasks. And then all of a sudden you get to the point where your boss, which is you, is pushing yourself too hard where you don't have time to do your job in the daily amount that you wanted to allocate for your daily job. So you're reevaluating, do I deserve a raise? Well, instead of getting a raise, you're reevaluating what your hourly wage is worth and then finding that one piece to say, you know what, here's the thing that's going to cost, here's something that costs me 20 minutes a day. So there's like an hour a week. Now, what cost am I versus what can I allocate that to somebody else or a AI or a technology that can actually replace that? That's your raise. Then you get your time as money. So think of time as the raise, and then you can increase it. So now if I think that I'm worth $25 an hour, now maybe I'm worth $26 an hour, but then you actually have more time to get closer to $27 an hour. So it is a constant reevaluation of what your time is worth and give yourself raises. And the raise again is add-on pieces to take the monotonous tasks away from you so you can actually do the sales front that whatever there's so many variations of what green time, some people call it, that it can actually allocate towards things that cause direct sales right into your pocket. So it's something that it's not a one and done. Make sure that it gets evaluated regularly.
Absolutely, Brian. I have a process for that in my life too. And when I start feeling like I don't like to go to work, that's when I realize that there's something that needs to be leveraged out of my life that's sucking all my time up. And I'm like, okay, what is it that's sucking my time up right now? What's the lowest dollar per hour activity that we can divvy out right now? And this is not a plug for a team, but like how a team concept is set up is that basically any tasks that are lower dollar per hour activities are actually ran by the operations team. And then that way our agents are able to all hop in and make those connections, build those relationships with their clients and do the things that they're paid to do, which is listing appointments, buyer appointments, and contacting their sphere at the end of the day. Everything else, that's our goal for everybody. We only want you guys to focus on the $100 plus activities on a daily basis, and everything else. The goal is a lot of the other stuff is kind of pushed off to the side. Is Catherine still on this call?
Yo,
Can you kind of talk about what you're doing right now in your business?
I'm on vacation. That's what I'm doing.
Exactly. I want you to share that. I want you to
Good for you.
I want you to share specifically how that's relevant to this conversation, though.
Okay, so I wanted to go on vacation with my husband for our second wedding anniversary, but did not want to just stop having my business for a couple weeks. So I've been leveraging, we have our admin team who helps crazily on the listing side in terms of just getting the transaction put together. So essentially once that listing appointment is done, we're good to go. It's just, answering questions and staying in communication with the seller. And then on the buying side, Carly is an agent. She's way more than this, but as a newer agent, I've been leveraging her essentially as a showing assistant so that she's able to get experience and make a little bit of an income. And I'm able to help clients buy houses.
That's awesome. Any other aha moments you guys have?
I guess the only thing to add is that it's been a really big eye opener for me because by the end of today, I'll have 2 under contracts and then a new listing live tomorrow. And I've probably worked 3 hours, 4, including this call, I'd say.
So that's crazy. Just take that into your guys' head and realize that Catherine has a pretty damn good income and she's been out of the state for like 2 weeks now. And she's been able to maintain her business that entire time. And that you change your mindset on things, you change how you look at things, and in your world completely changes. If we all think that we're the best at doing every single thing, we're never going to be able to grow as people, and our businesses are not going to grow as well. And we're going to hit a ceiling, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have felt that in your life, because I've hit ceilings before where I'm like, I keep consistently hitting this ceiling. I can't grow over this. Sometimes it takes a different mindset. There's not a new lead gen source. There's not a new brokerage that I'm going to switch to. There's not a new this or that. Sometimes at the end of the day, it's stuck right between your ears on why your business isn't growing to the next level. And Catherine has been a great example for that specific thing. So anybody else? Alex, do you want to mention anything? You're smart.
You're smart.
Doing a good job, Dan.
Thank you. Okay, so we got
I'll mention one thing. I think our market right now, it's been a speed market where it's like get to the house as quick as you can to show it, get it on the market as quick as you can, get as many offers as quick as you can. Now we're going more to a skill market where those agents who have really been working on their skills are going to really stick out compared to the ones that have just, like Dan has been mentioning, opening doors.
Yep.
So really focus on your skills going into this shift.
I agree. The last thing that I'm going to talk about is collaboration with other agents. I mentioned this earlier. The reason I put this script together is I'm like, okay, we're facing a new time. I don't know what to do. Like, I'm just somebody in the real estate business that I'm like you guys, trying to figure out what the best next move is, trying to stay in this business for the long term, because this is my so what business I want to be in. So collaboration with others.
Hey, Dan, real quick.
Yeah.
Remaining meeting time is at 1:50.
I see that. I'm trying to speed talk. Just so you guys know, I'm going to have Todd talk about what he sees on the lending side of things. Once we get kicked out, hop back on here. I'm so sorry. I'm asking you guys to do that one more time, but I'm going to have Todd share what he sees on the finance side of things in his world. So don't leave, stay on for 10 more minutes and that's that. So what I'm going to say is collaboration. What I want to do with this group, and the reason why I invited you guys to this, is that we're actually going to start. I'm not sure if you guys saw that Facebook page I joined you guys in on, but basically, I want to start doing more regular meetups with you guys. Yes. You guys see the Facebook page?
It's like 90 when it comes.
Oh my God.
Technology.
Whatever. I invited all of you guys to a Facebook page that I want you guys to hop on. And basically we'll have either every other week or every month we'll get on these kind of calls and just do updates with each other, practice scripts, practice kind of share with what we're doing in the real estate game right now, and just work together. That's my goal, is to help each other out. Okay, so other than that, I'm gonna kick everybody off, hop back on here for another 10 minutes. Todd's gonna share what's going on in the real estate market right now. You there?
Good morning, everyone.
Hey,
Good
guys.
stuff, Dan. I think this is old stuff that I love, and it's what amazes me is that you're taking the steps now to avoid issues down the road, because I think that a lot of times us lenders, I think the mortgage side will see things first, and then it trickles down to the consumer and then the realtors as far as the financing, the market kind of thing. So first, people will come out ahead of this versus people that are sitting back and letting things happen. I think it's a huge takeaway, because that's why you're on this call for, right? Is to continue growing yourself and to figure out different ways to stand out in front of the crowd. I think people that are wanting to grow and slow down are the ones that are going to be very successful. And you make it through a time like this that happens, it always ends up being 100 times.
Oh no. Is he frozen for anybody else? Yeah. Okay. Internet. Text him.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's like the 5th time today, this morning, that our Wi-Fi has kicked me out, so I apologize. So not for sure what's going on, but I do not know what you guys heard last, but I'm just going to say, did you guys hear what I said about Alex, about his comment?
No.
No.
Okay. All right. So I think Alex was the last one to speak as far as, he mentioned people that are, working on their skill set and growing themselves and really slowing down, because the last 2-3 years, it was throw it out there. It didn't really matter about that skill set as much when it comes to providing the customer with the best service. And now I think the people that are wanting to grow, that's why everyone's on this call, is you're wanting to make sure you're ahead of the game and making the right steps. So when you come out of this, the next 1 to 2 years, we're all the ones that are going to be way ahead of the game versus everyone else. So I love that. So real quick, I can talk for hours on mortgages. I'm sure Brian could too. But I want to kind of give a background on what's driving mortgage rates, and something that I think as an agent would be good to look at and kind of follow. So when you're talking to your sellers or talking to buyers, it's just that piece of knowledge that's going to show you that you care more and that you actually are understanding what's going on. You were mentioning, Dan, about the Fed's increase in interest rates and all that. Now, the big thing, mortgage rates are not directly tied to that Fed rate, right? So a couple of things that I would watch out for. The 10-year treasury is kind of, when that goes up, rates will kind of follow that 10-year treasury bond. So kind of watch that every day. Just pay attention to that 10-year treasury, because that's something, if you see that dipping down, on the mortgage side, we're going to see a dip down in mortgage rates then. If you see it increasing, you're going to see mortgage rates follow that 10-year treasury. And there's some sites out there I can provide you that give really good, accurate information in that as well. But I know me and Dan talked yesterday just briefly about things that are that we're seeing on the mortgage side. Is obviously, yes, rates have they're the highest they've been. They've more than doubled in the last year. And kind of what's causing this volatility a lot is inflation is one thing, right? But right now, no investor wants to invest in mortgage-backed securities. Mortgage-backed securities are very volatile right now, because every investor knows that when a recession actually hits, what happens to mortgage rates? They dive down and everyone refinances. So there's just a lot of volatility out there right now that's causing these rates to go up even higher. But the big thing is figuring out ways that we can overcome this and educate the consumer, the buyer and the seller, as far as different tactics that are out there to help with that monthly payment and that affordability then, right? I don't know, Dan, how much you want me to go into like more of the rates, what's kind of driving them. I think that'd be a conversation. If people want to know more, reach out to me, because it's a little bit, it's kind of hard to sum it up in a short conversation on this. So I would probably make your Zoom go over the time limit again. So, but just kind of watch that treasury on that, the 10-year, because that'd be a good indicator on that piece. Now, the last few days have been better. Rates have gotten a little bit better, making a good move forward on that part. But so I think it's more having conversations. I know for us on our team, we've been slowing things down, going back to the basics, having longer conversations. I think every conversation with the buyers is a lot more in depth and in detail, because it's not so quick out there right now. So we have more time to educate a lot more, which I think is that much more important. But it's figuring out different ways to combat the higher rates, right? Obviously, ARMs are a lot more common right now. There's been a huge increase in adjustable rate mortgages. That being said, the 30-year mortgages are still, like, people still, even though the rate's higher on the 30-year, people still revert back to that 30-year fix just for peace of mind. It's even though we all know that rates are going to be lower and they're going to refinance in the next, 1 to 2 years, they still revert back to that 30-year fix just for peace of mind. But one of the tools out there that I'm not sure if anyone heard about it yet, that it's definitely making a wave across the mortgage industry right now, is temporary interest rate buy down programs. And I've started to see some listings have this as part of the listing as well, where the seller will provide a credit, to buy down that interest rate, or to provide funding for a temporary interest rate buy down. And what this does is that we've been promoting the 2-1 buy down, where the seller will actually fund the buyer money. It kind of basically like an escrow account for the buyer, and that money pays down their interest rate for the next 2 years. So let's say today's rates are 7%. That first year, since it's a 2-1 buy down, that first year that rate is 2% lower, and then obviously the monthly payments and all that's based on the 5% rates. And then year 2, it's 1% lower. So everything's based on that 6% rate. And then year 3 goes to that 7% rate. So obviously the whole intention of this is that we all know that rates are going to be lower once the recession hits. So let's help the buyer out. The seller will give them a credit for that program, and it's a way to kind of capitalize on a much lower payment and rate for them. So basically, a lot of people are talking about discount points, let's buy that rate down to a lower level. Where right now that it's so compressed with that margin to buy down a rate, where it's not as impactful, because this person's going to refinance. It might cost 1.1% for maybe a quarter, 3/4 of a lower interest rate. It's not as impactful as like a buy down program on that. So I guess does anyone have any questions as far as like what on the mortgage side of things right now, like anything I can help out with, or kind of different trends or different ideas want to run past for suggestions?
Hey Todd, on that 2-1 buy down, what is the cost that gets passed to the seller? Is there like a normal math?
So there is a worksheet. There's a calculator that it's different for everything. It's really based on the loan amounts the buyer's financing. So what I do is I can share that calculator too. It's online. And that's basically what I've been doing is just I run the quote real quick and I send it off. And typically what it is, it typically pays for itself in that first year. So if the buyer is saving, $4,800, that's the cost it would cost for that seller. Some are pretty close to that. It's not 100% accurate, but that's something I can definitely share on that. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So just like, for example, I have one in the works right now that is a $200,000 purchase price. That cost of that buy down was $3,400. And they were locked in at 6.875. So the next couple year, next year before 875, then year after that 5.875. So
that's cool. Kind of the hope is, okay, if the seller pays $5,000, the buyer will save $8,000 over the next 2 years. Kind of
correct. Yeah. And it comes down to just, and it's, obviously right now it's like, that's a huge difference in monthly payment. Right. So 2% difference, even 1% difference, it's a huge amount of money that it's helping people out. And so, Dan, you're right. Everything we see in here on the mortgage side, you're saying a 50% chance of recession within the next year. I'm kind of seeing the same stuff. That's kind of what I'm hearing as well. A lot more things I'm seeing. It's definitely going to happen, and which is in the grand scheme of things, it's actually a great thing for everyone on this call, because what happens when recession hits, real estate historically will take off. Interest rates will dive down. Real estate it booms. It happens all the time. So it's getting out to to everyone out there that's looking to buy. Marry the house, not the rate, right? You can always take care of that interest rate when things adjust down. Let's get you in the house right now, because when their interest rates are lower, house prices are higher. When interest rates are a little bit higher like this, things level off. So people can actually buy, to me, I think people are buying a house at a discount price when interest rates are higher like this. So it's coming back and educating them on that piece. So I think people kind of forget about that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Todd. I think the moral of the story, guys, if we're going to go through a recession here or go through a market shift where it's harder to transact business, it's important that you guys are talking to a lender, talking to your title company, talking to your insurance agent, talking to everybody who is involved in this transaction and process, because you need to be hyper educated on what's going on and what people are seeing. So yeah, thanks, Todd. Appreciate that. Ryan, do you want to add anything to that?
Todd did a great job summarizing on the interest rates, what to watch out for. I back up what he says in terms of like the timelines. If anybody has any questions on why the market's moving, I'm sure Todd and I can both go into that. But like he said, we could go for hours on talking everything from the war in Ukraine, purchase-backed securities where they're coming from the Europe over to the United States, to the way the Fed's planning on doing 5 more rate increases over the next 18 months, or no, now it's 16 months. But then, if you're going to talk about who was the gal that was on in 2008, I started in this industry in 2000, so I got through the great tech boom, which again, if you guys remember tech boom, that's like when we started getting computers. And so that very first one this one actually feels a lot more like post tech boom to me than it does post 2008, because it isn't a housing crash, it's an economic change. The only difference is right now we do still have a supply chain problem. So when you talk about having to work extra hard for it, but uniquely, just like back then we had Fed Chairman Bernanke was raising interest rates at the same pace that they're raising rates right now. So 3/4, half a point. And really, it's kind of like the economy. The concern is we might get a little spark in the economy, and then the Fed is continuing to throw oak logs on a spark. And that's the same thing they did in 2001. And that's when rates went from like 9 down to 8, down to 7, down to 6 really quickly. And so what you guys are talking about, what Todd's talking about is right. Is, historically rates are going to go through an inflationary period, but once the recession hits, depending on what the Fed does, it'll fall. And typically, when I say typically, twice in the past 25 years, when we see recessions like this, will fall pretty quickly. And then it's basically a hover around a little bit. But again, you could go for hours on a conversation talking economics, but the one side, when you talked about 60% chance, I would agree with that. The other 40% chance, or the between 20 and 40% idea, is they might try to inflate or try to deflate the economy too quickly by throwing too high of interest rates to slow it down, and it falling in the spring. So there is actually a 20% rumble, 20 to 30% rumble that might push things too far, too fast, with possibly, and again, I don't want to give false hopes, seeing this thing fall apart next year. But most money is being put on that we're going to be in a cold 18 months. And so really having to knuckle down for all of 23 and being ready to come out of this in 24.
Yep, that's very consistent. And kind of what you said, Brian, we can't have good news until we get bad news. Like they're pushing the interest rates so that the economy does get slowed down. Like that's the whole point.
It needs to.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And so basically that good news to the government is good. The bad news to the government is good news. Like that's what they're looking for.
I like that quote.
Like they want unemployment rates to go up. They want housing, they want affordability things to kind of get, they don't want people to be spending so much money, basically, to continue to inflate the prices and everything. So, yeah. Does anybody else have any last minute things that they want to add on this? Alex, you're smart. You should hop on here and say something.
What do you want to know, Dan?
I don't know. Enlighten us with something.
I'll just keep going back to the skills. Make sure you guys are doing script practice every day, dialogue. answering those questions to show your value. People hire you because of what you can do and the value you bring to them. So just keep working on your skills. Make sure if you don't know the answer, you know where to go, and just be a great resource.
Absolutely. Basically summed this whole call up, guys. So appreciate you guys spending the last hour with us, and hopefully it brought some value to you guys, and hope to see you guys sometime soon.
Fucking annoyed by my Zoom.
All right, guys. Well, cool. I don't have anything else to add. You guys want to get a hold of us and chit chat or talk to Brian or Todd or whoever. Everybody on this call is an open book, and we'll be fine with chatting. So cool. You guys have a good rest of your day.
Great.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.